during the,
I'm recording now.
yep, it was during the 1982 Falklands War. So I'm going to start with share screen. Switch to PowerPoint. And go away, go for the slideshow. Okay, can everybody see?
Yes.
Just nod.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. STUFT ships taken up in from trade. These are really kind of fun, and I've got a very touchy mouse today. When Argentina invaded the Falklands, it was April of '82. The British government authorized basically the requisition of all British flag shipping. This allowed shipping companies to break their contracts and be pulled in to work with the RFA. 46 merchant ships drafted in the following weeks to support the Operation Corporate and the retaking of the Falklands. They faced having to travel 8,000 miles and faced an opposed amphibious assault. The Royal Navy, unable to handle due to the decision to concentrate the fleet's need for NATO defense off of Europe, and they had reduced over the years. The fleet was at a very low level, so they needed whatever they could get that was seaworthy and had the endurance to take on the ferocious seas and the length that it would take to get there. So they grabbed tankers, they grabbed just about everything. Crews were all volunteers and all British. I should say most every ship had civilian crew who opted to stay on the ship and serve. So it was a rather amazing choice made. They took a little bit of everything: minesweepers, hospital ships, repair ships. And they went this way. They went from England and Gibraltar down to the Ascension Islands, and then they split down to the Falklands. And you can see over on the second map from the Ascension Islands down. So it's quite a ways and very close to the Antarctic Circle. This one is on here because it's one that David was still looking for. It is a minesweeper, and that's what it looked like when it came back from the Falklands. So you could see the weather was really quite brutal to the ship, but I have never been able to find a cover from it. So still looking. Then there's the Fernella. This was used as a minesweeper off of Port Sydney. Also used for transshipping stores, special ops as they landed at San Carlos. This swept 10 mines cleared. After the war, it became the Odyssey Explorer, and it was still in service as of 2018. I haven't been able to find anything more recent than that on the ship, but you can see that these are from right about the time. Then came the Junella, which was also used as a minesweeper. It was a trawler in its civilian life. And if you notice the similarities in names, it's because they're all from the Jamar line, and they name their ships with an Ella at the end. So this was also used for transship stores, special ops. It also swept 10 different mines. After the war, it was a fishing vessel. And then it caught on fire in 1999 and was scrapped. You will see this name, Fred Booth, the Green, Clayton, Doncaster, I'm sorry. A lot of David's collection came from him. He was very active in collecting the Falklands at the time. Then there's the Northella, also of the Jamar line, used as a minesweeper off Port Stanley. It 10 seems to be the magic number because this one also had swept at 10 mines. And you can see a lot of these are the stamps are from the Ascensions. Again, we have Fred, and they've labeled things, yeah, at sea. This lower one is a bit later. Then we have the Pict. We've changed shipping lines. This is United Trawlers. And you can see what this ship looked like while it was down there. It was also, the sea was very, very cruel to a lot of these ships. Again, we have an Ascension Islands, and we have a command with a task force from the Falkland Islands over here that's postmarked out of London. The St. Helena is from the Curo shipping lines. This one carried, containerized modules for servicing the minesweepers. Again, we have posted on board, again, during the war itself, Falkland Islands Task Force. And this one over here, which doesn't say that it was there, but it's from St. Helena. So Canberra, this was used as a troop ship, and you can see that they went and grabbed regular ships, and it was a passenger liner, and so it was perfect in some ways for them to use as a troop ship. It also carried containerized modules. And after the war, as of 2018, it was still in service as a cargo transport. These are both, again, one is right before the war, one is just there. They're welcoming it home. It returned safely from the Falklands. And there's the very famous use of the QE2, used as a troop ship. 3,500 troops of the 5th Infantry Brigade and equipment was used. It resumed its passenger operations after the war. This is a picture of it actually down in the Falkland area. And you can see here it's in the Falklands with the 5th Infantry Brigade. Then we've got the Uganda. This was a hospital ship from the P&O line. It was used with full capacity and 730 patients, of which 150 of them were actually Argentinians, 544 operations during the time they were down there. After the war, it became a store between the Ascension Islands and Falklands. It was hit by a typhoon in 1986 while awaiting scrapping. It was driven ashore at Taiwan and scrapped on site there. The Alvega. This was from the Finance for Shipping Lines. It was used as a base storage tanker at the Ascension Islands, providing fuel, diesel, aviation fuel, lubricating oil, etc. It was scrapped in 2004 after the war. Again, you can see Fred Booth, and most of these things are right on time for the battle itself. The Anco Charger. This is a P&O line tanker. It was used to dispense fuel in a safe area of an exclusion zone. 16,000 tons of fuel were delivered to other ships. After the war, it was sold to a Liberian company, and then it became a Norwegian ship and was scrapped in 2004. The Balder tanker is also a P&O ship. It was used again to dispense fuel at a safe area. Like its predecessor, it was also sold to a Liberian company and then to Norway, or to a Norwegian company, I should say, and scrapped again in 2004. This cover over here, which has a lovely picture of the ship, was actually from 2003, the war in Iraq. This one over here was just after the Falkland War. British Avon, this is a BP line tanker. It was used to carry, again, fuel, lubricating oil. It replenished the RFA tankers, and it carried Lieutenant Commander Alfredo Aztiz to England, who was considered the blonde angel of death. After the war, it was sold to an Italian, and then a Dutch firm, and then scrapped in 2000. British Dart, again, another tanker above the BP line. It was also used for replenishing other tankers from a safe zone, carried survivors of the RFA Sir Galahad. It was scrapped in 2002. You'll notice a lot of these are very much the same as far as the covers go. It's more of who was there at the time. They're not cached. They're, it's mostly personal mail. British-esque. This is also from the BP line. It was sailed in the company with the Tang Forest, evacuating POWs and other survivors of the Sheffield. This ship was scrapped in 2001. And you can't see this really very well, but it talks down here about what it would, where and what it was doing at the time. Again, Fred Booth collecting from the Ascension Islands. British Tamar, again, the BP line. This was a refueling ship, and it was in a holding area southwest of the Ascensions. It never actually got that close to the Falklands, but it was there in support of all the other ships. British Tay, again, a BP line tanker. This was used to fuel the RFA tankers in the holding area. It evacuated survivors of the Atlantic conveyor. I was not able to find what became of the ship after the war. Sorry. British Test, another BP line. This one is from after the war, but it's the only one we've been able to find of this particular ship. So until I can find a way of updating it, this is the one we have. British Trent, another BP line carrier, tanker. This carried cargo south and transported 101 survivors from the Sir Tristan. After the war, it collided with the Western Winter off of Austin. and was scrapped. Excuse me. The Iberna. I think, yeah, I went too far. There we go. The British Y, another BP line. This was also used to deliver fuel to other ships. It was bombed by Argentinian aircraft on 5/29, but the hits only bounced off and did not explode. After the war, it was sold to 2 companies in Malta and then scrapped in 2002. This is a tanker from the shipping line Shell. It's in Shell Oil. Again, it was used to refuel the carrier battle group over a 3-week period and acted as a guide for the fleet. The ship was scrapped in 2007. Fort Toronto. This is from the Canadian Pacific line. This ship was used to provide water to ships in the safe zone 200 miles east of the Falklands and water for troops ashore. After the war, it was sold to a Greek firm and it's still in service with them. You can see that somebody liked it enough to write on it that it was a freshwater tanker taken from trade. So it's being remarked here as being a stuffed ship. This is the G.A. Walker, again, a Canadian pack line tanker. This was actually, it replaced an RFA tanker in the European waters and then took position off of the Falklands at a later date. After the war, I don't know what became of it. I couldn't find anything on it that way. The Scottish Eagle is actually from the King Line. It was used as a fuel depot ship at South Georgia, then moved to the Falklands, dispensing fuel and lubricants. It was sold in '86, and then it's unknown what became of it after that. The Stena Inspector, we're into the repair ships. This is from the Stena line. It was a repair ship that aided in salvaging the ARA Santa Fe at South Georgia Island. After the war, it was retained as RFA Diligence and has been awaiting a sale since 2021. The Stena Sea Spread. This is also obviously the Stena line. This is a repair ship. After the war, it became a cable laying ship, and it's been out of service after 2015. And you can see over here where they wrote that it was instrumental setting off the Falkland crisis when she landed the scrap merchants on South Georgia, subsequently beached after an air attack. The Baltic ferry. This is always kind of interesting to me. They actually grabbed the roll-on, roll-off ferries and used them for troops and equipment. It went back and resumed its service as a ferry, but it was scrapped in 2011. You can see posted at the high seas. Another roll-on, roll-off ferry, the Elk. It's from the P&O line. It carried the 3rd Commando Battalion Maintenance Reserve, had guns, vehicles, and it carried 3 helicopters also. After the war, it resumed its service as a ferry, and it was also scrapped in 2011. The Europic ferry is a Townsend-Thornton line. This was used to carry equipment for the troops. And again, it went back to being a ferry after the war. It was sold to a Greek firm and then scrapped in 2005. And you can see an awful lot of the ships who were there, if they could, they marked that they were with a task force during this, during the Falkland Islands. The Nordic ferry is another Townsend-Thornton, also used to carry troops and support equipment. This ship was, it resumed service as a ferry, but was damaged by a fire in 2017 and then scrapped. You can see that the person here wrote also on the note that it was a roll-on, roll-off ferry taken from trade, carried troops, store ships. They actually made notes on his covers for things that were during the Falkland War. The Norland, this was taken from the P&O line. This landed the 2nd paratroops and landed other troops from Canberra and the QE2. After the war, it went back to serving as a ferry. Then it was sold to Italy and scrapped in 2010. And you can see this one states that this is the first commercial voyage after returning from the Falkland campaign, which I thought was a great little note to be making on the cover itself. The Rangatira, this is a Union steamship. This was used to carry 1,400 troops and stores, and then was used as an accommodation ship. You can see over here, it's talking about the naval party number that it was on and the forces in the South Atlantic. And there again, it says South Atlantic force ships. This resumed service as a ferry, but it failed at an attempt to convert to a cruise ship and was scrapped in 2005. The sorry about that. The St. Edmunds, it's a Sea Link line ship. It was used to carry the 5th Brigade troops and some of the RAF. It was repatriated high-ranking Argentinians. After the war, it was retained an HMT Karen, sold several times, and then scrapped in 2009. We're into stores ships. This is the, excuse me, Avlona Star. This is from the Blue Line. It was basically used to deliver stores via helicopter, and it was scrapped in 2010. The Geesport. So it's a Geest Line ship. It also just carried stores. It did not carry troops or anything else. It was merely used as a backup storage ship. It went back to its usual being a reefer ship and was scrapped in 2009. Again, this is obviously from Boston. And then sometimes you take the ship when you can get it, and you upgrade to a wartime ship if you can find it. So the Laertes, I think is actually how that's pronounced. This is an the ocean transport and trading line. It was used to carry ammunition and stores. It tells you over here basically what happened to the ship. It was requisitioned at Belfast and had to move. To Lycon. This is also an ocean transport and trading ship or line. This was an ammunition ship. It also carried stores. It was scrapped after 1998. And you can see again down here, they have their own notification that they were on a task force specific to the Falkland Islands War. The Myrmidon. Those of you who don't know, that was actually the name of the troops who served with Achilles during the Trojan War. This is also an ocean transport and trading line ship. It was used to carry tent and portable accommodations. It arrived actually after the ceasefire. So it was not there during any of the battles themselves, but it did show up and served. And the ship was scrapped in 2004. The Saxonia, this is a Cunard line ship. This was a heavy store ship which was delivered to RFA ships. So it basically served as support for others. This was scrapped. And you can see, again, they're written on that this was the South Atlantic Task Force when they were there. Strathhew. This was a cargo ship from the P&O line. It transported 2 Royal Army landing craft used as cargo lighters to Falkland construction equipment and military stores. I do not know its fate. I could not find anything on it after the war. The Tor Caledonia. This was the Whitwill coal shipping line. It was again a roll-on, roll-off cargo ship in its former life. It was used to carry 30 Rapier missiles for the 9th Air Defense Regime. And then also it carried vehicles. It was driven aground in 628, but was towed off with little damage. I did not find anything about what happened to it after the war. Then we've got aircraft ferries. This is the Astronomer, which is a T&J Harrison line ship. It was used to carry 13 helicopters. it had 995 helicopter landings, and it serviced 14 Wessex helicopters. After the war, it was actually retained as the RFA Reliant from 83 to 86 and was scrapped in 98. The Atlantic Causeway, also a Cunard Line ship. It replaced the Atlantic Conveyor after it sank, carried 28 helicopters, handling 4,000 helicopter landings. It became inactive after the war and was actually scrapped pretty soon because it was out of service by 86. And the Atlantic Conveyor. This is also a Cunard Line ship. And it was used to carry 25 aircraft. It was Harriers delivered to the Hermes and the Invincible. It was hit by 2 Exocet missiles in May 25th of 82, with 12 killed in action. It sank while under tow in May of 82. So 3 days after this cover was posted, it was sunk. Or I should say, the 4th anniversary of it being sunk. This one actually is very close to the day. And you'll notice it has, someone has typed in exactly what it was doing there. The Contender Bezator. This is a sea container shipping line. It carried 6 helicopters, 4 Harriers, and 3 other aircraft. It was retained after the war as the RFA Argus, and it is still in service today. The Iris is used as a dispatch vessel. It's a British telecom shipping line. Carried essential stores, personnel, and mail. You can see somebody actually put together the helicopter operations on a short film that you can say that you can see it online, which I actually didn't go looking for. So I don't know if that's still up or not. And over here we have what naval party it was under when it was there. The Irishman is a United Towing's tug. It was used with Special Air Service troops involving the salvage of the ARA Bahia Buen Sucesso and the RFA Sir Tristram. It was the ship that was one of the ships trying to tow the Atlantic Conveyor, which earlier, as I said, it sank while under tow. I do not know what happened to the ship after the war. I could not find anything else on it. The Salvageman, another United Towing Lines. This is considered to be the most powerful tug in the world at the time. It carried towing and salvage gear. It did ops with the SAS troops involved in the salvage of the Bahia Buen, the Sucesso, and the Tristram. Also is working with trying to tow the conveyor. And as I said earlier, that one sank. We have another United Towing Line tug, the Yorkshireman. It refloated the ARA Santa Fe and refloated the Tor Caledonia. Again, I don't know what became of this ship after the war. I am assuming it went back to its normal life, but I don't know how long or whether it's still at work or it's been scrapped somewhere. Then we come to my favorite name, the Wimpy Seahorse. For those of you who know me, I have a thing for seahorses. So this is actually a wimpy marine boat. It was used to carry mooring gear and stores. It laid several moorings in South George Islands and the Falklands. After the war, it was sold and became the Porto Salvo, and then the Captain Dink. And the last ship, which is a miscellaneous, it's the British Underwater Engineering Ship. It was used, well, they wanted to use it for cable laying. I couldn't find a lot out about it. This is another ship that I do not have a cover from, and I'm still looking for one. And that is the end.
I am truly amazed you were able to find those covers.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
It was a lot of work. We both would be looking on British eBay. That was one of the things that David absolutely loved about eBay, was that he could look on Japanese eBay, German eBay, British eBay. He started looking on an Argentinian spot because he does have some Argentinian ships from the Falkland War. So they are hard to find. And I believe that Fred Booth probably died because a great many of those covers that you see there came from a collection that was sold off within a very short period of time. And a lot of them came to us. So I hope you enjoyed it. As I said earlier, I know David would have had an awful lot of little asides, but I think considering how much research he did, I don't think I did too badly. So I hope you did enjoy it.
Lori, that was great, Lori. I'm sure a lot of us remember Margaret Thatcher's little war there, but I had no knowledge of all the auxiliary vessels, so this was all new to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. One of them was actually interesting. I thought I had made a note, but I don't see that I had it, but it was on one of the particular ships. It was on its way from where it had been working in the Mediterranean. It was being sold to a company in Texas. It stopped into Malta to refuel, and it was nabbed. The British came on board and said, by the way, you're not going any farther. We're taking the ship and it's coming with us. And the Texas company actually sued and lost. And when the war was over, they actually tried to send the ship on to the Texas company, who basically said, you know, we weren't ready to wait this long for it, so we made other arrangements, you can keep it. So,
Lori,
there were some interesting things about being taken from trade.
Lori, History Today has an article on the Falklands War, and they do part of the naval aspects of it. I think it's in the April 2022 issue.
There's actually an article online by a guy named Nick Messenger, who had a very specific slot on the STUFT ships. Most of the ones that I find are the Royal Navy's fight in the Falklands. There's very few articles that I have found that really take you into the depth of the STUFT ships, which kind of makes them a little bit more fun because they're a little harder to find. They're a little more unique.
As far as I know, the only thing that's ever been written on the stuffs was a World War II or shortly after World War II publication by His Majesty's Stationery Office about 40 some pages about ships taken up in trade. It was part of
Was that
that.
with China?
No, this was in 45 or 46. It's part of the British World War II trade economics studies they did.
Okay,
So that's the only thing on stuff that you ever then Balkans come along, and then there's a couple little things about that explains about how the British can reach out and grab a ship, and well, all the countries can do it.
I think so, but I think only the British are rather famous for it, because I know they actually, it was either just prior to World War II or during World War II, there were some stuffed ships that were grabbed in the China Sea. But I don't know much about what they are. I just know that it happened there and then.
Well, you look at World 1940, the U.S. Navy is grabbing ships that have just been built by the Maritime Administration, been given to this steamship line and that steamship line, and all of a sudden they're grabbed by the Navy and they start converting them into various auxiliary ships. So it does happen.
Yep.
But once again, it's a great show.
Well, thank you. I did enjoy putting this together. So thank you all for coming.
Now, can I ask a question from way out of left field?
Certainly.
I've been following the Ukrainian war off and on. A lot of stuff on the land action, and we get this stuff about these cargo ships have been taken up to move the grain. And that's it. Has anybody seen anything about the cargo ships? 40 some cargo ships are supposed to be. One cargo ship went to Israel. It's really weird that all this stuff, and then I can't find anything about them.
No, if you're watching the news, it's all pretty much on the land war. And occasionally something dramatic happens. They'll talk about this much, about some ship or another, either being set afire or that sort of thing, the grain ships that have not been allowed to leave, but I haven't really seen a whole lot on them. So no, I don't know what's going on with that.
So I'm going to have to hopefully live for another 10 years so I can read about it when Peter sits down and writes the book on it. Right, Peter?
Do you know something about Peter we don't know?
No, I just picked on him since he was the center of my screen.
Ah, okay.
Very good, very good. I love it.
A
Thanks,
question.
Charles.
I think you're being volunteered. Well, if you want to write it in a serial format, I'm sure it could be published in the log.
Yeah, interesting story about what's going on in Ukraine and with the ships, that's for sure. Yeah.
Lori, question for you.
Yeah.
A couple of those early pictures that you had there, the first few pictures, the ships had a big black square with some number in them written on the side. What was that for?
Hang on a second, because I'm not quite.
Yeah, this was in the first few pictures that you had.
Are you okay? Are you talking about before I changed over to full screen in the slideshow and they were off to one side?
No, this was the first few of the slideshow, right at the very beginning.
Oh, where I was talking basically about what happened with the Falkland War.
Yeah. Yeah, the first few ships that you were mentioned that were taken up. The trawlers used as minesweepers.
Yeah. I don't see numbers there. I'm not quite sure I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I saw a black square in the middle of them.
Oh. Wow, you shouldn't have, because was that actually I know you can shrink down like the people who are on the Zoom. And it does come up as a little black square. I always move mine as far off to the right side as possible so it doesn't cover any of the pictures. So it might have been that, because there's no numbers like that on the slide themselves.
Okay.
Okay, no, not on the slides, on the ship themselves.
Oh, on the ships?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on a second. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Hang on. Oh, that's the number. Okay, now I know what you're talking about. I had to go actually reopen my PowerPoint and look at them. Those are the registration numbers for the shipping lines themselves.
Okay.
So like we would have, SS 222 is a specific submarine.
Uh-huh.
Those are the numbers for the various shipping lines for the registrations of the,
Well,
of the
no,
ship.
wait a minute. Didn't what happened was some of the ships remained underneath the red duster and some went underneath the white battle flag. And the ones that went under the white battle flag wound up being a ship number assigned to them. I'm going way back in my reading of Operation Corporate, but it seems to me that like the minesweepers went under the white flag. They were taken up by trade, but they weren't under the red duster, the merchant flag that you had.
Yes, they became most of the ships became some form of auxiliary. That was how they had to. I think they had to be taken as an auxiliary ship, but I don't know if those numbers actually are. I've always assumed in looking at the photos, because some of those pictures are not always from the Falklands.
Okay.
So I tried as best as I could to get Falkland pictures, but since I couldn't always do that, I assumed that the numbers that are on them are their merchant ship numbers for the shipping line they belong to.
Well, my understanding was the ones that became the minesweepers, since they were engaged in war activities, direct war, got the white flag. They were made Royal Navy auxiliaries, as opposed to the other ships were taken up from trade. But I may be misremembering, and one of you other guys are going to correct me.
I don't think anybody's going to correct you. A lot of those ships, well, a lot of the ships actually stayed as a Royal Navy, it's a Royal auxiliary. Yeah. Most of them were taken into what was called the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. So they weren't considered necessarily battleships as such.
I'm over here looking at my books.
Yep. No, I figured you were going to do your research. Let's face it, we all have libraries so that we can figure out what we're doing.
Okay. The fourth force, the untold story, the Royal Fleet Auxiliary since 1945. And you most probably need to get a copy of this, because it's got a listing of the ships that were in the Falklands and specifics on them and that.
Yep, we've got a couple of research books. The Norland actually has a really good book about being the quote, the secret to, what's the title they use? Secret weapon of the Falkland War. I didn't quite see it myself, but goodbye, Matthew. You enjoy the rest of your day if you have to go back to work. Thank you for
Nice seeing you. Nice seeing you, Matthew.
Join us again. Our next one is in December. We don't do a November or a December alone. We do November, December combined because of the holidays. So do try and join us again.
I'll try to get in. I'll try to get in here.
Yep. If you can't get to these, Steve does post an email that has where you can actually click and go and see it online without necessarily having to be here. So if it's the day you're working, but it's something you're really interested in, do click on the link and take a look at them, because a lot of these, all of them, I think, have been really well done.
Yeah, that's a fun presentation.
Yeah, I looked at the Hannibal one right before you guys came up. That was a nice introduction coming into here.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'll try to carve out
Last
some more
one was
time. That's good.
The Civil War covers. You could redo that.
I'm sorry.
You could redo the one on Civil War covers. That was,
I could if anybody's really interested in it, but I've been trying to get more people to participate. So I can if we run out of volunteers, but hopefully I'll figure out something in the meantime.
Peter's gonna do one in 2023.
after watching that one, I went out and bought Federal Civil War postal history.
Oh, okay. There's a really great small book that David talked about. I don't, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the name or the author. The author is actually one of our members because he actually logged on to watch David give that talk. And David was recommending that book because it's very well done with a lot of information about the ships during the Civil War. Great reference material. Okay, if everybody is done, I am going to sign off. I'm going back to typing up an auction for the log.
Well, thank you, Lori. It was very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do hope you enjoyed it.
See you guys next month.
Thanks a
Not
lot,
next
Lori.
month. December.
Yes,
That's
the next one is December. It will be fun. That's the other Yangtze, the other
Another view,
view.
Yep.
another view.
Another view. So that, yeah, I find, I've always liked the Lawrence covers, the multi-chops. And because while they're not official stamps, if you will, for mailing, they still make for a fun cachet.
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to that one. And then Peter, you're doing January, aren't you?
Well, I don't know about January,
I've got
He's
January.
doing January. That's
I've
right.
got
That's January.
but I am pleased to do one next year. That'll be my goal. I'm actually in Australia between January and March, so it'll have to be a little later in the year. But yeah,
That makes sense.
Okay, there's 12 months in the year. We'll take
yeah,
any
that's
of
right,
it.
for sure, for
And we
sure.
do 11, so you've got plenty to
That's
choose
great.
from. So
For sure.
actually, I think we might only do 10 because some months, the month we have the convention, we have a tendency not to necessarily have one. Well, I hope everybody will join us for the auction that is coming up in December. They're doing a
Do
Zoom.
we have a date for the auction?
December 3rd.
The 3rd.
December 3rd, okay.
And this is an auction of what's left over from the convention.
Yes.
Yes, and I think it's also some things that didn't make it to the convention. From the donated covers that come to me, I put together 2 lots that are 24 covers each. So there's some very nice things. I looked through the list. I'm not sure, do we have a link in the log? Do you know, Steve? I always get the links in as an email, so I hadn't
There
really.
is. There is a link.
Okay. So
And
those
I'll send out a note probably in a couple weeks.
Okay. Yeah, that would be good. Since it's Zoom, we'll count on you to host it and we'll all be there. So
Great.
thanks again. We'll
Thanks,
see
everybody.
you next one.
All right.
Thanks.
See you all in
care.
December. Have a
Yep.
happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Yep.
Sure.
Take